I was staring at myself in the mirror, dressed like a stranger, and it finally hit me. This wasn't my wedding. This was my mother's performance. My hands trembled as I adjusted the necklace she insisted I wear. Not because it was beautiful, but because she said everyone must see it. How it showed class. How it proved she'd raised me properly. Behind me, she smiled as not at me, at my reflection. "Stand straight," she said, fixing my shoulders like I was a mannequin. "People will be watching. People. Always people." 2 months earlier, I had said no. Calmly, politely, I told her I wasn't ready. That I didn't know the man. That I needed time, she cried. Raged, then went silent, the most dangerous phase in our house. She told everyone I was confused, influenced by modern ideas, that I'd thank her someday. Relatives called, family friends visited. Whispered conversations stopped when I entered the room. Every refusal painted me as ungrateful, disobedient, a problem. My father stayed silent, always did. The final blow came when she whispered, "If you don't do this, don't come back." No yelling, no drama, just exile. So there I was, dressed in white, smiling on command, while my chest caved in. She walked out to greet guests, glowing under their praise. "Your daughter is so lucky," someone said. Lucky, my blood boiled. I memorized that moment, the applause, her pride, the way she soaked it all in, standing there trapped in a life she forced on me. I made a promise. I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't fight openly, I wouldn't beg, I would be patient, and one day, I would take everything she cared about. Silently, the first weeks after the wedding were a living nightmare disguised as civility. Every morning I smiled at strangers, laughed at awkward jokes, nodded when they praised my obedience and grace. But inside, my mind was a storm of fury and plotting. I started small, little things my mother couldn't trace. I let her take credit for minor victories, smiled at her pride, and let her bask in her perfect daughter illusion. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Conversations, manipulations, secret phone calls, even the lies she told to relatives. Every detail would matter later. One evening, she flitted through the house, checking on me in that delicate, motherly way that always made my skin crawl. She whispered, "Soon everyone will see how lucky you are." Lucky, again. I smiled, letting her believe she still had control, but inside, I was sharpening my plan. Patience was my ally. There was power in being underestimated, and I intended to use it fully. Weeks turned into months. I learned every routine, every weakness in her social armor. I discovered secrets she desperately wanted hidden, financial slips, rumors she tried to bury, conflicts she manipulated for appearances. Most importantly, she relied entirely on appearances. One slip, one subtle exposure, and her perfect life could crumble. I began planting seeds. A misplaced email here, a forgotten message there, all carefully crafted so she'd never suspect me. I remained the obedient daughter, smiling through dinners, nodding at gatherings, silently tallying my moves. The perfect opportunity arrived during a visit from my in-laws. I mentioned small details casually about her business dealings and stories she had told me in private. Innocent phrasing, careful pauses, subtle hints. By the time she realized it was too late. Questions arose, curiosity sparked. Her flawless image began to crack. I watched silently as her pride wavered. Every slip, every stammer, every raised eyebrow from others was a thrill. For the first time, I felt momentum shift. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was gaining control. With each polite smile, each thank you at dinner, each nod at a compliment, I was weaving a web she wouldn't see until it was too late. She still thought she controlled the narrative, but I knew differently. Every moment she enjoyed her perfect daughter illusion was building her own downfall. I had become the quiet storm she never anticipated, and it was exhilarating. By the time the next family gathering rolled around, I had gained complete confidence in my silent strategy. My mother strutted through the room, radiating the usual pride, recounting stories of how she sacrificed and guided me into the marriage. Relatives nodded and praised her wisdom, oblivious to the storm I was quietly brewing. I decided it was time to escalate. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse. I simply let subtle truths slip into conversations, carefully chosen words that painted a slightly different picture of her actions. A casually mentioned detail about her helpful advice that wasn't really helpful. A tiny observation about her manipulations during my wedding preparations. Every phrase seemed innocent to the untrained ear, but it planted seeds of doubt. My in-laws, who once admired her perfection, began asking questions. Little clarifications, small hesitations. I smiled politely, nodding, while my heart raced with anticipation. Each raised eyebrow, each puzzled glance felt like a tiny victory. My mother, sensing something was off, tried to intervene, but she was too late. The doubts had already taken root. Meanwhile, I continued to master the art of observation. I studied her reactions, her habits, her overconfidence. She had one fatal flaw. She believed no one would ever see through her carefully curated image. And that overconfidence became my weapon. Every lie she told, every manipulation she executed, I catalogued silently. One day it would all unravel. At the same time, I maintained the appearance of the obedient, grateful daughter. I laughed when she expected laughter, nodded when she expected agreement. She never suspected that her pride was building the stage for her own downfall. Then came the perfect moment. During a dinner with extended family, I casually mentioned a forgotten incident from her past, something she had always denied. I phrased it as an innocent memory, but the effect was instantaneous. Whispers started, eyes shifted. Questions followed. My mother's composure cracked for the first time in front of a crowd. I could see it in her eyes. Confusion, panic, disbelief. For months she had controlled the narrative, but now the control was slipping through her fingers. And the best part? She didn't even know who had orchestrated it. As I watched her stumble over explanations, trying desperately to salvage her image, a sense of quiet satisfaction washed over me. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't confronted. I had let patience and observation do the work. I realized something profound in that moment. Revenge wasn't always about loud drama. Sometimes the most devastating victories are quiet, methodical, and perfectly timed. After that dinner, I knew I had momentum. Every glance my mother gave me now carried a hint of suspicion. She couldn't understand how the cracks had appeared in her carefully polished world. The best part? She didn't realize it was me behind them. I continued my quiet dismantling step by step. I subtly informed relatives of past manipulations, always phrasing it as casual storytelling. Innocent observations, small coincidences. Little truths became big doubts. Friends who once admired her started questioning decisions she had made. Even her closest allies began noticing inconsistencies. At home, I maintained my obedient facade. I helped with chores, smiled when she expected it, and let her feel the illusion of control. She thrived on appearances, and I fed her exactly what she wanted, a perfect daughter playing the role she wrote. Meanwhile, I collected proof, emails, messages, and snippets of conversations she believed were private. Every document, every detail, was a piece of the puzzle I was assembling. My plan was no longer just about revenge. It was about showing her that the world could see the truth she had hidden for so long. Then the day of reckoning arrived. I invited a few key relatives for a casual gathering at our house. Nothing seemed unusual at first. A small dinner, polite conversation, laughter. But I subtly introduced the pieces I had collected over months. Casual mentions, hints, and anecdotes. The reactions were immediate. Eyes widened, whispers started, and my mother's composure began to crumble. She tried to spin the narrative, of course, but her words fell flat. The facade she had maintained for years was cracking in front of everyone. Friends, family, even neighbors who had once praised her integrity now questioned her honesty. Every carefully constructed story she had relied upon for her image was unraveling. As I watched her struggle to maintain control, a deep satisfaction filled me. I didn't need to raise my voice or stage a confrontation. The power had shifted. I had waited patiently, observed quietly, and struck at exactly the right moments. That night, I went to bed feeling a mix of relief and empowerment. My mother, who once dictated every move of my life, was now forced to confront the consequences of her actions, and all without me ever shouting, arguing, or revealing my plan prematurely. The calm after the storm was almost surreal. I had taken back my life, reclaimed my freedom, and watched justice unfold quietly, but completely. The final weeks after that dinner were like watching a slow-motion collapse. My mother tried to salvage her image, but it was too late. Every relative, every friend, every acquaintance who once admired her now questioned her judgment. The very perfect life she had curated for herself was unraveling before her eyes. She came to me one evening, her voice trembling for the first time, asking why things had gone so wrong. I simply smiled, not cruelly, but firmly. "Maybe people just see things differently than you expect," I said, letting the words linger. She couldn't push further without exposing herself, and she knew it. I realized then that revenge isn't always about confrontation or confrontation-based victories. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, methodical, and most importantly, it's empowering. I hadn't shouted, I hadn't begged, I hadn't even lost my calm. Yet the outcome was absolute. Her control was gone, her reputation shaken, and her illusions of perfection shattered. In those moments, I felt a freedom I had never experienced before, not because I had taken something from her, but because I had reclaimed what was mine, my life, my choices, my dignity. Every smile she had forced me to give, every nod I had made under pressure, had been part of a silent plan that finally paid off. And when the dust settled, there was clarity. I understood something profound. The most satisfying revenge doesn't come from anger or malice. It comes from patience, intelligence, and the unwavering belief in your own worth. She had built a world on appearances, and I had dismantled it piece by piece, with precision and care. Now, when I look back at that time, I feel a strange mixture of satisfaction and reflection. The experience taught me the power of observation, patience, and subtlety. It showed me that sometimes silence can speak louder than any shout. And most importantly, it reminded me that I could rise above manipulation, reclaim my autonomy, and emerge stronger than ever.